Hello. In this video, you will get acquainted with the interface and basic features of the Economy Widget web application, as well as learn how the website itself is arranged. We recommend using the full screen mode to maximize your experience in the browser. Let's start with the module that interacts with the world map. It has several different modes. The activity mode is now on. This one displays trading activity around the world. For instance, let's choose the market cap mode. The color and size of the circles on the map have changed. The size of the circle represents capitalization, and its color stands for the change in the capitalization for the selected time period. Periods are in the upper right. If we choose a different period, the indicators will change. In this module, users can create and edit modes on their own just in a few clicks. If you want to add your own modes, you have more than 100 financial indicators to choose from. We'll study them a few more times in other modules of the program. Let's move on to the next one. If you are interested in a country's financial data, just click on its circle and a country brief info window appears on the right. Macro indicators are displayed first, and when you switch the slider from macro to stock, you get data on the country's stock market state. Here we can immediately see changes in the country's capitalization and trading activity for all periods. Next are the country's leading and lagging sectors and industries and a list of its stock market's aggregate financial data. The info window can also be customized individually. You can add more indicators from the drop-down list. And if you want to see all the financial indicators of the country's stock market at once, just click on the More button. Financial indicators are divided into blocks. I would like to draw your attention to the fact that here you can find both aggregate indicators of the entire country's market, which is the total column, as well as average indicators shown in the average column. Data on the number of stocks in this country that are above their moving averages also can be found here. In the Macro Indicators mode in the More tab, countries' all macro indicators are displayed, including agencies' ratings. The next module includes 3 small windows that show the ratings of the most distinguished industries or sectors for a selected time period. These are trading activity, capitalization growth, and falling. These windows are also customizable. If you are not interested in industries with few companies or low-cap industries, you can exclude them from the ranking with the following setting. All user settings in this program remain unchanged when you visit the website again. Also, the user can save several workspaces for different analytical tasks. More lines and ratings can be added by maximizing the list. All you need to do is simply click on the Show More button and scroll further down the rating. Similar to the industries, these windows also show the selected country's lists of sectors. You can switch to them by pressing the S button. Sectors will have their own settings. In case you select not a country but the whole world at once, another button also appears in these windows, that is the C button. This option minimizes all windows and maximizes when you click back. In the center of the map, there is a circle called World. Click on it and you'll find the aggregate data of sectors and industries of the whole world displayed in the rating windows. And as you can see, the C button appeared, which represents the rating of countries. The info window now also displays aggregate data from around the world. All active windows have a pinning function. For example, if you want to compare several countries' ratings with each other. Fix it, move it, and choose another country. You can do the same with the country info. Then let's go to the biggest module on the current desktop. That is the Feed window. This is a feed where countries, sectors and industries are listed every day according to settings and filters preset by the user. Switching occurs in the same way as in the rating windows, and the settings together with the entire history of the feed are located in this menu. In the Industry Settings window, you can select a list of countries which industry should get in the feed. You can also filter these industries by capitalization, and mark the necessary criteria such as growth, decline, or activity. And the parameters of these criteria values are configured here. We fill in what minimum values of growth, decline, or activity the industry must have to get into the feed. Individual values are set for each time interval. You can also see the history of what would have got into the feed according to the current settings for a specific day or a period of time. You have the date menu for this. All set parameters in this window can be saved, for example, for each region with your own filters and settings. Now the feed will only display things you really need. With certain settings, you can see the potential capital flow from one industry to another, or the same industry in another region or country. All sectors and industries, both in the feed window and in the rating windows, are clickable. After you click on the desired industry, a brief info window appears, which is similar to the one for a country. The first lines show the industry ratings. Those show values for the country, for the whole world, and among the same industries in other countries. Below, you can find the aggregate financial indicators of companies in this industry. There is a complete table with all the indicators in the More tab, just like in the Country Info window. The Total column has the aggregate values and coefficients, and the Average column shows the industry averages. This concludes the widget section. For more detailed and comparative analytics, we switch to the second desktop. Now let's look at the laboratory modules. The first line refers to the stock markets of countries. In the second line, there are the rest of the world's financial instruments. The work area, which is divided into a visual part and a list of selected objects, can be found below. Let's examine it in depth. In the first line, you can set up and select the objects for the stock markets that you will research. First, in the indicator menu, you need to select the desired financial indicators. You can select 3 values simultaneously, where X is the horizontal value, Y is the vertical value, and Z is the size of the element on the graph. If you need dynamics of a time interval, then you specify the date value in X. In this case, Z will not be available. How it all works. Let's say you need to study some industry. Choose the necessary indicators, for example by X. It will be the EBITDA from market cap. Pay attention to the average and total marks at the end of each indicator. They mean that for this indicator, either both average and cumulative values are available, or there's only one thing. In the future, you can choose one or both at once and then compare them on the graph. Now let's select the second indicator. Let it be the one called debt from equity. Let's choose capitalization by the Z value. Below, there are the user saves with values for X, Y, and Z. You can name the templates arbitrarily, and next time immediately proceed to the analysis of the necessary indicators. In the next menu, you set a filter for companies that will participate in the calculation of the industry, sector, or country you need. For example, if you set the capitalization range from 1 billion and more, then during the calculations of aggregate data and averages, only companies with a capitalization of $1 billion will be included. And if you check the Only Profitable box, then you'll exclude all unprofitable companies which have the EBITDA value below $1,000. Now we select the countries whose industries we are interested in. For example, we want to research the software industry in Japan and compare it with those in other countries. To do this, mark the countries of interest. Skip sectors. Select Software in the Industries menu. In the Companies menu, we can see all companies that meet the established filters and will participate in the calculations. These are America, Canada, Germany, and so on. By the way, pay attention to the checklist. It contains all the elements that we noted, and not only the industries of the selected countries, but the entire countries themselves. For example, in the USA, there are 1,549 companies that meet the established filter. From among these, there are 45 companies in the software industry. In the list representing Germany, we can see the same stocks from different exchanges. Preferred and recurring shares are not included in the calculations of indicators of industries, sectors and countries, with the exception of trading volume, which is taken into account from all stock exchanges. Thanks to this, the calculation of the financial indicators of industries and countries is not distorted by duplicate data, but at the same time, the calculations of trade activity are complete. Let's move on to the calculation. Press the Go button and instantly get your results. Even the most detailed calculations take a few seconds. Now we are not interested in countries' values, so we untick them in one click. We could do this even before the calculation, as well as pre-assign colors to each object from the checklist. Now the graph shows that among the software industries, the largest percentage of profit relative to capitalization is in Japan, at 5.85%. And the industry also has the lowest debt relative to equity, accounting for only 12.33% of total companies' debt included in the calculations of this industry. On the left, below the graph, there is information about the filter set, so that the user does not forget which companies are involved in the calculations. As you can see, the calculation is carried out only for profitable companies with a capitalization of $1 billion or more, what we set in advance in the filter menu. The buttons Total and Average allow you to instantly change the value from the aggregate calculation to the average one, and this can be done both with one indicator by X, Y or Z, or simultaneously with all of them by clicking on the buttons. We now see a display of two calculations which are both cumulative and industry average. Let's consider the checklist module again. You've probably noticed the copy and edit buttons. Here comes the example of what they can do. If you need to see the position of the entire software industry in Japan without filters, you simply copy that industry in the checklist and set individual values. Let's reset the filters. X, Y and Z will stay the same, but the name will be corrected. As you can see, the number of companies has increased significantly. Opposite the industry, there is the pencil icon, which will remain yellow. This is a reminder that individual settings have been assigned to it. Now let's change its display color on the graph and calculate. The situation has not changed significantly, which means that there are no big drawbacks in the industry that can pull it back. Of course, this is a superficial assessment, nothing more than an example of the current module's functionality, so your interpretation may be different, and the volume of analysis can be much larger as well. The main thing is to understand that with the help of this program, you can carry out versatile analytics in a short time, in a few clicks. You can save the settings of both individual modules and entire workspaces with all settings and graphs. If you need to change something in the work already done, but at the same time keep the current version in plain sight, you simply press the Copy button in the Graph tabs, and the current workspace with all settings will be copied without changes. In the new window, you can already change something and switch between tabs anytime. Or you can create new tabs and do analytics in other directions, and then save all the research into a presentation and print it out in one click. The possibilities of this web application do not end there. Now let's consider a graph in 2 dimensions. X represents time. Let's confirm it. And for example, Y stands for the volume of trades to capitalization. As you can see, Z has become inactive. Let's calculate. We can change the time interval. For example, consider the last month, or use the bottom scroll for this. We can also change the method of displaying values here. In this case, we have net values. This means that over the last month, the daily aggregate trading volume in the Japanese software industry averaged about 1% of the capitalization of this industry. On June the 12th, it is 0.99%. On June the 11th, it is 0.84, and so on. If we switch the display mode of values from the standard none to value, then we will receive changes in values from the beginning of the displayed period. In this case, from the beginning of the month. Now it is better to see which industries and on which days distinguished themselves from the rest. For example, on this day. On May the 18th, the Japanese industry was much more active than the rest. And we also see that on June the 10th and 11th, the trading volume of the American software industry was significantly different from others. The next mode is percent. It also shows the change in value since the beginning of the current period, but only as a percentage. As you can see, the German industry had the largest deviation from its average trading activity that day. And even in the last 6 months, it was the most abnormal jump in trading volume. The capabilities of the desktop allow you to work with several indicators at once on one graph. For example, to study the correlations of various financial data and instruments. Let's copy the US software industry, for example, and change the Y to market cap. Let's change the color. Calculate it. And we have one more scale here for measuring capitalization. Now we can see 2 indicators at once on one graph. Disable the rest of the industries so as not to interfere with visual perception. The number of parallel measurements can be more than 2 as required. You can add any issuer from the second menu line to the same graph. Indices, currencies, commodities, whatever. Also, you can always add any financial instrument from the search in the checklist if you know its ticker. For example, let's add Apple. By default, the calculation for the added company will follow the indicators set in the first menu line. So we can again use the individual setting. And for the second menu line, the issuer's price will always be displayed by default, but the trading volume is also available in individual settings. Now we turn to the biggest module in the laboratory. Its name is Top. This module is designed for quick search and automatic analysis of companies for all possible financial indicators. Here you get ratings of companies, in industries, sectors or countries, according to your chosen financial indicators and installed filters. The result of calculating the rating depends only on your needs. You form the methods of evaluating companies yourself. It can be either one financial indicator or all at once. You can also copy the checklist list and installed indicators from the laboratory in one click. As you can see, the checklist of the Top module is already filled in automatically. It selects what we examined in the graph. Now you can identify the best companies in the industries or countries that interest you. You can add something else or remove it. Now the rating will be calculated according to 3 indicators, i.e. the first place will be dedicated to the company that will be better than the others in all the established indicators at once. The first window of the rating displays the best companies among all the selected industries, and in the remaining windows their ratings are calculated separately for each industry. When you hover the pointer over a company, its values participating in the rating calculations and a place in the rating for each indicator separately pop up. Companies of interest can be added to the laboratory checklist to investigate their other sides. In the Top module, you can calculate the ratings of companies by the country and even by the whole world. There are no restrictions at all. Also, you can add any number of financial indicators, and then you will have a rating of the best companies that meet all of these indicators at the same time. You can monitor the state of the economies of countries, as well as the primary analysis of stock markets in the widget mode. And when you need detailed analytics, you can use the laboratory desktop. You can also quickly transfer objects from the widget to the laboratory. Let's create a new tab for demonstration. If you are interested, for example, in any industry from your feed, you can check the box here, and it will immediately be added to the laboratory checklist, saving you time on searching for it. This way, you can add the whole country. Let's go to the laboratory. The selected objects are already in the checklist. All modules were developed in such a way as not to impose restrictions and to give the user the freedom to explore the financial markets in accordance with their knowledge, and each user will determine the rest of the benefits for themselves. Thanks for your attention. Invest wisely and be successful.